Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Spring Fling Through Awakening Your Senses panel discussion. I'm Stephanie McCoy, the founder of Bold Blind Beauty. This afternoon, I have with me 4 panelists and my right-hand person, Nazreen Buddha, who will be introducing herself in just a moment. I am a medium brown skin Black woman. I'm wearing a peach-colored tank top underneath a black sweater, and I have on a pair of my favorite rose gold earrings. Nazreen, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Thanks so much, Steph. Welcome everybody to Waking the Senses. As Steph said, I'm Nazreen. I am part of the Bold Blind Beauty team and so proud to be, and so excited about today's discussion. And I am a biscuit light colored, that's the color they call me, a lady with shoulder length hair that's golden brown chestnut color. I'm wearing red rimmed glasses, and I'm wearing a coral chiffon top with coral white and blue through it. And really excited to be here today to talk about this wonderful, amazing topic. So I'm going to turn this over back to Steph to introduce our panelists.
Thank you so much, Nazreen. Unfortunately, due to some significant technical issues, our moderator for this session will not be able to join us. So Nazreen and I are going to be sort of our semi-quasi moderators. We're going to be asking our panelists questions. We're going to give them 3 minutes to answer each question. And then we hope that the conversation is going to be organic. So just bear with us as we go through the session. And I want to begin with Anthony. Anthony, would you please introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Anthony. I am an Italian-American Caucasian with jet black hair and pretty white skin for an Italian boy. I'm wearing a red polo shirt. And if I really were pressed, I've been told that I'm sort of a cross between George Clooney and Ray Liotta, which, as I'm told, is devastatingly gorgeous. So I'm really glad to be here.
Thank you, Anthony. Keisha, would you like to go next?
Sure. My name is Takesha Saffold, and I am from Palm Beach County, Florida, which is in South Florida. I am a medium brown, pecan tan, African-American female. I am 38 years old. I have naturally curly hair, so I'm rocking the natural look. I'm about 5'3" in height. And I have, I guess, pecan slanted eyes and, well, almond-shaped eyes is the correct terminology. And I am very excited to be one of the panelists for this event.
Thank you, Takesha. Natalie, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, I am Natalie Watkins, and I am a Texan. My skin color is pretty pale. I am an Anglo-American of Western European descent. I have green eyes and medium brown hair. I guess I have been told 30 years ago that I looked like Angelina Jolie, and now I just look like Angelina Jolie's very fat out of mother. So that's kind of the look I'm rocking these days, but I'm owning it and enjoying it and excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Natalie. Thomas.
Hi, my name is Thomas Topping. I'm from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, kind of right in the middle of the United States. I'm a Scottish Caucasian male, about 5'10", and I'm kind of jealous of everybody there. I do not have any hair. I shave my head and keep it short. I'm in my late 40s. About 48 going on 49, and that's about it. Oh, and one more thing. I have light blue eyes.
thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to have you all with us today. During our meet and greet, this group was so dynamic, and I'm sure that everyone that is listening is going to enjoy this conversation. We really didn't tell you what the conversation is about. We're going to be talking about sensuality and sexuality. So if you have any small children in the room, you might want to put them in a different room, just so that, you know, we're sure that, you know, they're protected and not hearing anything that we wouldn't want them to hear. So since our moderator couldn't be with us, I am going to read the bullet points that she left for us in regards to what we're going to be talking about today. And then we're going to get into the question and answer portion of our session. So what we have here is sexuality is all about attraction that may be emotional and or physical. Sensuality is the culmination of thoughts and feelings and behaviors around sex. Sensuality, enjoyment, expression, or pursuit of physical, especially sexual pleasure, passion, and physicality. So with that, Nazreen, would you like to kick us off with the first question, please?
Absolutely. So Anthony, what does being sensual mean to you? Let's start with you.
Being sensual is a lot of things to me. You know, first and foremost, it means, you know, allowing my vulnerability to share my vulnerability. It means giving myself permission to feel my sexuality, to feel my masculinity, to feel, you know, I believe that we're all, you know, fluid, and we have masculine qualities, we have feminine qualities, we have, you know, out there alien kind of qualities that you're not sure where they come from. But, you know, sensuality is being able to embrace all of those things, you know, and feel good about it, and feel strong enough and bold enough, bold blind beauty, to share it with another or possibly, you know, multiple others. But most importantly, it's the strength of allowing my vulnerability to be, you know, in the room and a present player.
Nice. How about you, Natalie? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think, yeah, definitely vulnerability, authenticity. You know, I think it goes far beyond the physical. I feel like so much of it when you're young is, you know, I think during the meet and greet, Anthony said, you know, when you're 22 years old, you can show up and breathe, and that's sensual. And I think that's so true. But I think, you know, as we get into, like, I'm in my late 40s now, and it becomes so much more of a multi-layered, multifaceted experience of not only the physical, but the emotional, and especially as my vision has gone, really appreciating every aspect of a sensual experience, from smells and how things feel. And it's a whole level of experience that I never really had before when I was sighted, because everything was so based on a visual experience, and that's such a dominant sense. So in a lot of ways, I feel like the vision loss has enhanced my sensuality, especially after that initial difficult adjustment period. So.
Thanks for that. Awesome. How about you, Tom? What do you think?
Expressing, like the other two panelists, expressing my vulnerability, being comfortable with my body. I think that's very important. Feeling comfortable about your body makes you feel confident about yourself and expressing yourself. Sense of humor, I think that's very important. Expressing that outwards, and being open-minded with myself and with other individuals about my sexuality and stuff like that.
Great stuff. And Takesha, same question to you too.
All right. Well, I agree with some of the things that the other panelists have already mentioned. For me, it's a meaningful connection. I'm a very emotional person, and I like to be mentally connected with someone to even express my sensual side. So for me, it's a very exclusive feeling or connection that I would have with someone, to be open-minded and to definitely be expressive. So it's something that I probably wouldn't want to share with just anyone. It would have to be definitely a special connection or feeling that I have with someone to open up and to express my feminine side with the opposite sex in that sensual way, and to have that overall connection mentally. For me, that's first and foremost.
Agreed.
Go ahead, Tom, you're going to say something?
No, I agreed with her. She hit a lot of points, a lot of good points.
I like the exclusive club, you should have that velvet rope up. Your sensuality is something, it's a gift that you're giving. But first to yourself and then to someone else. So you should have that velvet rope feeling about it. Absolutely.
Well, giving and also receiving. You always hear, from friends and other people that sometimes, people are always taking, but never giving. And I think it's a two-way road. It's giving and receiving.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what's so beautiful about it, especially as Takesha said, in the context of somewhere where you feel very comfortable and safe. So that to me goes hand in hand with sensuality.
This is a really interesting conversation, and I knew it would be based on how you guys interacted during the meet and greet. You're making some really good points here, which takes us to our next question, which is, how do you, as a person who is blind or low vision, own your sexuality?
Well, I'll go. For me, that was a transition for me. And for whatever reason, being partially sighted, I didn't really feel disconnected from my sexuality at all. But when I went into a world that was totally non-visual, not being able to see my appearance, not being able to see other people's reaction to it, all of that added a whole layer of complexity. And that was an adjustment. It took years to get to the other side of feeling like I really owned that aspect of myself again. And I think we have on the agenda to discuss self-care later. And that was a huge pivotal part of the process for me.
I'll go and piggyback right on her, because I just celebrated my 5-year blind anniversary, and I lost it really basically all in one shot. And I'm an alpha male to begin with. I am part of the LGBTQ community, but I'm a very alpha. I played sports, and I was very the dominant one in most of my relationships. Not dominant like I'm gonna whip you or anything, but the stronger personality. And so for me, it took, my sight also took like my masculinity. It took my mojo. It took my sensuality and my sexuality, all in one fell shot. And it took a while. It felt like I was losing everything. And, that spiral was just, it was heartbreaking and devastating. And, after I kind of got mobility down, I was going for a guide dog and had done some of the technical stuff and was really, ready to emerge back into life. I had to make a conscious choice. I want to go back into the dating world. You know, a sidebar, right at that moment too, when it happened, I was newly dating someone, and they had the bright, wonderful feeling for me to say, well, I'm going to let you deal with this for a couple of months. I know you're strong, and when you've got this, give me a call. And yeah, you can just imagine that phone never rang. But when I made that choice, I wanted to get back out there. Part of it was realizing not to try to recapture what I thought I had lost, but to feel who I am now. And in the process of understanding that, the basic nature of who I am didn't change. It actually grew. I'll never be someone who says, and I've heard this from other people, oh, blindness was a gift. I'm sorry, but I miss driving. I was taking pilot license, it's not a gift. But it did open areas inside myself that may not have opened for another 10 years because of the life that I was living at that point. And so for me, it's just every day reminding myself, I'm strong. I'm sensual. I'm sexy. I've always had that personality that when I walk in the room, people look. So you know what? Even if I can't see them looking, just pretend that they are and keep it moving.
I love it.
And I'll jump right in after that. This is Takesha. And for myself, when I became visually impaired at the age of 26, I'm going to say like self-acceptance was first for me, was accepting myself as being a woman who is, blind, visually impaired, and building that confidence back up as this new person that I had to learn to become. And then, self-awareness about myself. So it was learning myself and learning these new ways about myself. And after sort of taking all of those factors, it helped me to develop mentally that, I am sexy, I am attractive, I am all of those things. And no matter how others may feel about me, it's more about how I feel about myself, increasing my self-love and loving myself unconditionally. And areas that I may not be as happy about, then I should do something about it, and not just focusing on those things, but doing things that is going to make me happy about myself.
Mm-hmm.
In response to what you just said, I know in my heart of hearts, I'm probably about an 8, maybe an 8.5. But when I walk into a room, I exude, I'm an 11, I'm a 15, I'm a 20 for all sakes and terror. You're gonna treat me like I'm a 20, or I'm gonna keep it moving.
Yes, yes.
No, that's your sense of humor.
And I feel
Thomas.
that.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you can go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Finish what you started.
Well, for me, it's, image is not really important, but it is in a way. And I always say to myself, I'm like, you know what? I refuse for anyone to say, oh, look at her, she's visually impaired, she can't help it. I refuse to be that individual that people look at. So the impression that I want to set on people is that I want them to know, well, how does she do it? So that is what makes me feel good, because I want a wow effect from people.
No, I agree with you completely, Takesha. I want to walk into a room and be so put together that they're like, how did that happen? How does she do her makeup? How does she, rock that outfit? I want that experience. And it means more to me now than it even did when I was sighted. I'm very reluctant to go out in sweatpants and a hoodie and, because I feel like people are going to attribute that to my blindness rather than just having a laid back, comfortable day. So, I think feeling put together is even more important.
Yeah, this is Thomas. I agree with all your points. I know when I started losing my vision and I was single at the time, I was kind of devastated in the beginning because on the outside, I still was the same person. But people who had vision kind of look at me and saying, "Oh, you're a blind man. I mean, how can you date anyone? Because you can't see us. You can't see me." It's like I see what I want to see in my mind by listening to you and talking to you, and maybe getting a hug from you. But after I kind of realized, I was like, you know what? I am the same person. I just can't see that individual. So I had to build up my instincts. Like, if you ever have that gut feeling like, oh, should I cross the street? Is it safe? Should I take a risk? You follow your instincts. You build that up inside you. And after a while, it's like, you know what? This is me. I walk in the room, like what Anthony says, I'm like a 8.0 or 8.5, but when I walk in the room, I'm smiling, I'm happy, and I had people come up to me and like, wow, I mean, they're like, you're blind. I mean, why are you happy? It's like, well, I'm blind. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm going to be myself. I'm still the same person inside as on my outside. I just can't see you. But I sure can listen to you, and I sure can give you hugs and kisses and everything else. I'm still the same person.
Yeah, exactly.
What sighted folks don't realize is, and I'm sure we've all gotten a version of this question, like, oh, do you have the supersonic hearing now that you're blind? Well, no.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have the supersonic hearing. What sighted folks don't realize is your eyes actually take over the rest of your senses, and they force your brain to ignore a lot of the information that you're getting. And so I don't hear any better than I did when I didn't have sight. It's just now my brain is more attuned to what my ears are telling me. And it's the same thing with, with touch. And it's so, we all have that gut instinct inside us. And, when you meet that person, attraction, your eyes fool you. Your brain fools you and makes you think that the attraction is based upon what the body looks like and how they're dressed and whether or not they have spinach on their teeth or, lipstick on their teeth. But really, the base attraction, it's pheromones and it's intellect and things like that. So blindness, in a way, like I said, I'm never going to call it a gift, but it awakened so much inside of me to the other things, the other information that was coming along. And a great voice, by the way, wow, what it can do for you.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
definitely. Now, with Anthony and everybody else, have you ever seen the movie or heard the movie Shallow Hal?
Yes. That's I saw that when I still had sight. It's a great movie with a great message.
That's kind of like, in a way in the beginning, like what you said, Anthony, our eyes fool us, and after, his brain was kind of, changed a little bit, he saw people that, made society considered ugly or disfigured or blind or whatever, but he saw what was inside them, the beauty that came out. So,
Anthony, I think that was a very powerful statement you made about, from the sighted perspective, how the eyes can fool people. I'm going to remember that one.
good teaching thing.
Yeah, they put blinders over the rest of your senses, and sometimes when they say seeing is believing, no, actually feeling is believing. When your gut tells you something, it's for a reason. It may be the pheromones, or it may be something that you hear behind a voice. Your eyes only tell a small fraction of the story.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's true. There's all of these different aspects of perception. It's really fascinating. And and as a blind person, I think that tap into that so much more. And that really goes hand in hand with sensuality and sexuality.
Oh, yeah.
What a great conversation. I just love this. It sounds like all four of you are very much confident in your skin. And I think that's amazing. The next question I want to ask you all is, what self-care do you guys practice for yourselves? in regards to the self-image and your self-confidence of yourselves?
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I would say definitely keep up with, maintaining your body, meaning like ladies, going to the beauty shop getting your nails done, or, men making sure, you shave, unless you want to grow a beard, but shaving, taking showers or baths every day, and putting on deodorant, brushing your teeth, or combing your hair, which I don't have anyway, so I don't have to worry about that part. And then, the clothes you wear. I mean, it's like when you go out and you buy new clothes, and you want to find something that makes you feel good and comfortable and makes you feel sexy, because that's what you're going to be wearing out in public. And if you feel comfortable in your clothes, you're definitely going to express that outward. And also exercising, trying to keep in a good health. Don't be sitting around all day or all night and eating junk food, but you could eat some junk food a little bit, but get out, go for a walk, get on the treadmill, do some sit-ups or some push-ups. Just keep yourself in shape.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I joke about being heavy set, but during my blindness journey, I had such a difficult time maintaining a decent exercise regime that it did have an impact. And so I said, I'm going to do something about this. And I started ordering vegetarian meals through the mail, and got an exercise machine, and been meeting with success. And I think that is a huge part of the process is taking care of your body. And like Tom said, I mean, or Thomas, excuse me, from a female perspective, like, don't be afraid to budget for those pedicures and manicures if they make you feel good. Don't be afraid to budget for those things that make you feel like a girl. And and I think it all feeds into self-confidence. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
Agreed.
So I'm going to take a slight bend in the road with this question. And
I
agree with everything Nat and Thomas just said. But I feel like I have to check in with myself often. First mentally, moods will kind of creep up on me, or I'll have an immediate reaction to something, and I've taught myself to stop and say, all right, am I really feeling this? Am I feeling, more layers of this, but, this is what's coming out on top, and along those lines, I also like to check in with my body. I make my own coffee grind and honey scrub, and I will, I'll tell my partner, hey, listen, I'm gone for the next hour and a half. I'm shutting that bathroom door. I'm going to spend an hour in the bath. I'm going to scrub everything. I'm going to spend 20 minutes rubbing myself up with my Bath and Body Works product. By the time I come out of here, I'm going to be smelling fine. But while I'm in there, I'm checking things out. I'm feeling myself. I'm enjoying myself. I think fantasizing is something that people don't speak about. It's still one of those taboo subjects, but when I'm in the bath, I fantasize. Sometimes I'm on a beach, I'm in 90-degree water in Fiji, I've got a cabana boy with a fan, with a palm frond fanning me, it doesn't really matter what the fantasy is, but I let myself have that moment to just really check in with myself, check in with my fantasies. And, it's amazing how a self-spa day, a self-spa hour and a half can really make the rest of your week.
Yeah, I want to hear about this coffee and honey scrub that you made.
So what I do is I take a lemon and I cut it in half and I rub it all over my body, my face, my hair, everything. Then as I'm sitting in the bath, I use the scrub, to exfoliate and the coffee it stimulates your skin, it stimulates your mind, and so, I've tailored my products to scent, to pair scent well. So that by the time I'm all finished, I'm smelling good. My skin is, when you feel these elbows here, it's like feeling a baby's butt. And I'm in my mid 40s. I hate to admit it, but I am. And I have the skin, and the doctor literally just told me last week I have the skin of a 22-year-old. Wow, I sound so like Jackie.
Amazing.
But I promise I'm not, a douche.
I have to agree with Anthony. Sometimes you have to get away and do a little fantasizing for yourself. You have a quiet time someplace if you have a partner or if you're by yourself. I'm like Anthony. I mean, I like to go soak in the bathtub, a nice warm bath, and bring in maybe a glass of wine and, some, scented candles and, I put music on. Yeah. And, and when I get out of the bathtub, I like, clean myself up and, freshen up. And this might sound weird to other people, but I'll walk around my house, naked. It's like, I feel like, I'm on a nudist beach. Like, I'm happy. I smell good. Feel clean. I feel like baby's bottom. I'm just full of energy. Sometimes you have to get away and fantasize with, about yourself or with other people sometimes.
I have to agree with everything that has been said thus far. I am a girly girl, so I like all of the girly things, and I certainly like getting my medi and pedis and eyebrows waxed and keeping up with those type of things. And having brothers and having a very good father in my life, I realized as a woman how important it is. Those are the type of things that men look at. They look at your toes, they look at your nails, they look at your hair, and they look at those things. And when you do those things, they know that men know that you have took an interest in yourself. You have invested in yourself and your well-being. And for me, most important, I always go to the mental aspect of it, is the mental health of how I want to feel about myself. So anything that I can do to make myself feel better, I want to do those things, like you all have mentioned about nice soaks. And that gives me an opportunity to read a book during that time and have a glass of champagne, or even play some music and just relax mentally. And just doing whatever I want to do to make me feel good. And I love going to the gym. But if I'm unable to go to the gym, I like putting on some music, whatever music that makes me feel good, and dance around.
Dance around the house, yes.
Yes. And just be in my moment of how I want to feel, and don't care what I'm doing, and just be in my world. And so whatever world you create for yourself, create it to what you want and how you want that to be for yourself. And it doesn't matter about anyone else in your world.
I agree with you, definitely. That's what you need once in a while. You just get away and just be with yourself to build that confidence about yourself, so that when you do go out in the public or on a date or spend that extra time with your husband or wife or partner, that expresses that to them, and they feed off that, and they turn around and reflect it back to you, what you're feeling about you. And it kind of like the energy, you start exchanging energy with each other.
Yeah. And what you two ladies said answers, one of those typical sighted person questions. Oh, why do you bother putting on makeup if you can't see anyway? Well, why do you put on makeup? Or why do you put on an expensive $200 tie? Because it makes you feel good about yourself, because it makes you feel strong. It makes you feel sensual. It makes you feel powerful. For whatever reason, you put on jogging pants to feel comfortable. You put on a suit because you want to feel power in a meeting. Same reason. We do the things that we do to add to our own feelings of self-confidence.
And I think that it's worse when I see that other blind people feel as if we shouldn't do those things, like it's only for sighted people. And
Yes.
that is a really
God.
false misconception about what we, I mean, there's no rules to what we can do, or any limitations. We have the same desires, we have the same goals, we have the same as anyone else. And whatever we want to do to make ourselves feel the way we want to feel, we should have no restrictions. And I think, to me, that is the worst thing, is when I hear other people who are blind and visually impaired place limitations on themselves and put themselves in the box. We are not in the box. We are outside of the box, and we are able to do whatever we want that makes us happy.
I agree with you, because I've had female friends and male friends, but, well, I've been told that I'm blind, and, you know, I shouldn't be dating anybody, you know, because no one cares what I look like. It's like, well, I care what you look like, I tell them. I mean, if I'm going out in public with you, I want you to look good. I want you to feel confident about yourself, you know. You don't have to lock yourself into a box. And that's the hardest thing, you know, as a blind man or a blind woman, is getting out of that dark hole and just getting out and enjoying life. I mean, we're put here on this earth for a reason, to enjoy life, enjoy what's around us. Don't lock yourself away. Don't put yourself in a closet, you know. Get out there, have some fun, enjoy what's given to you.
And then, you know, one of the basic human truths is, you know, 95% of the population makes their first impression of you within the first minute and a half of being around you. So, you know, I spoke with a woman about this very same conversation, you know, and she's like, I don't do my hair. It doesn't matter. I can't say it, and I don't care what anyone thinks of me. Well, you know, there's reasons for putting yourself together. You know, you can't walk into a job interview with your hair going in 12 different directions and stains all over. I mean, you can, but you're representing that company or that space or that whatever that job is. And, you know, they can't tell you, well, you look like Jack, so we're not going to hire you. But when you don't get that phone call, it's because you didn't put the effort in to present the best you can present. We don't all have to look like, as I referenced before, George Clooney or a Julia Roberts or a Reese Witherspoon, but we should want pride within ourselves enough to present the best package that we can present. And unfortunately, in the world that we live in, visual is a huge part of that presentation. And though I can't look in the mirror and see it, I know what I look like. You know, I know when I play with my hair and spike it up. You know, I know I'm wearing a blood red polo shirt.
You're making me
and
jealous.
I know it's good on me.
You know, when I was in my 20s and 30s, I had gorgeous kind of slightly wavy hair, and I used to grow it down to my shoulder, and you know, and I miss putting it up in a ponytail sometimes, or you know, putting a little loop to kind of make it a little more fluffier. But you know, as I grew older and as you know, my hair fell out, and it's like, you know what, I'm just going to shave it down. And I've been told by both men and ladies, like, wow, Tom, you look really great, you know, being bald. And yeah, it's how you feel inside and what people tell you what you look like. Because you never know when you're going to run into somebody that has vision and they find out that you're blind. They're like, really? You're blinded? Wow.
Yes.
I mean,
yes, I love that moment.
It's like, wow, you look great. You know, because some people I've talked to vision-wise, it's like, well, blind people, how do you dress yourself? How do you put makeup? It's like, just like you. I put a pair of pants and a shirt on, you know, I try to match things. And if I'm not sure, I check with my neighbors, or, you know, I do a video, you know, phone video, and say, hey, hey, bro, my, you know, brother, and it's like, hey, does this kind of match? And you're like, Tom, you might want to change that shirt there, you know, that. that salmon color doesn't really go with the pair of pants you got on, you know. But, you know, it's like, at least I'm checking with somebody. It's like, because I want to look good when I'm going out. I want to impress people. You know, I want to meet somebody, but hopefully, you know, fall in love with somebody and, so like old saying, you know, have a great relationship.
Yeah.
Is it okay if I can add another comment?
Sure, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, when I was in this pageant, and I remember, and an associate went with me to MAC Cosmetics, and I wanted to have some lashes applied, and she made the comment. She said, "Oh, I wouldn't do that for the first, you know, meet and greet." And I said, "That's the most important part."
Yes.
Well, that's what a
like,
meet
you
and greet
know,
is, isn't it?
I want
Yeah.
to come through the roof when I walk in. I want people to be like, "Oh my gosh, who is her?" And I'm like, no, this is very important for me to do whatever and really it was just what I wanted to do and how I wanted to feel about myself. So I would never allow anyone to discourage me from doing something that I want to do, even if they feel that it's not necessary. It is very necessary.
Yes.
So,
Mm-hmm.
so.
Yeah. How about you, Natalie? What do you think?
Well, I just echo what, I mean, everybody has had such salient points, and I can really connect with what they say. I mean, feeling put together is key, and having that self-confidence. And we live in a visual world, and part of being in a sighted society is conforming to those rules. You know, I think that makes a big difference in how we're received by others. Now, we can debate the morality of that all day long, but the hardcore fact is that's the way it is. So
exactly. That's right there. That's the key. It is the way it is. We're a tiny percentage of the world at large, and we want our equal rights. We want to be treated, you know, as everyone else is treated. But we're living in a world that is built for people that see. You know, I love the whole, you know, I'm not going to go in a building if the elevator doesn't announce the floors. Well, honey, there's probably only 12 or 13 buildings in your whole city that announce the floors. So what are you going to do? You know, as much as we want ADA compliance everywhere, it's not feasible that we can snap our fingers and get everything we want and everything we need immediately. The world is built the way it's built, and we have to adapt and put our best foot forward. And part of the best foot forward is putting, you know, whatever appearance that makes you comfortable, that makes you happy, that will exude the rest of your personality out. People will say, "Oh, I just want, you know, someone to get to know me for me." Well, that's great, and we have a leg up on that, actually, being blind or visually impaired. But part of getting to know someone for you is taking the time to put in to be put together, to be confident about what you're wearing, how you're appearing, and that's just the way it is. The world is set up that way.
I think, yeah, and that's, oh, go ahead, Thomas, I'm sorry.
No, it's like what Anthony, it's the same way, you know, when you had vision. You did the same thing when you had vision. Why not do the same thing when you're blind? I mean, don't let blindness stop you. I mean, you're just stopping yourself. I mean, when you were single and you had vision, you were, you know, feeling that confidence, you know, getting ready to go on a date or going out with friends. You want to look good. You want to feel confident. You want, you know, you're trying to attract the opposite sex or the same sex, you know. That's just part of our animal instinct.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I mean, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, and that wanting to be as visually attractive as possible isn't just when you're single. I mean, you know, married people want to present their best selves for their partner and the world at large too, you know, so we're not excluded from that.
Yes,
Oh, I
because I
agree with
want
you,
my
Natalie. Yeah. Go ahead.
yes, because I want my significant other to always find me attractive.
Mhm.
And I don't never want to get comfortable with thinking that it's okay for me not to do certain things that I was doing before. I want to continue those things and make sure that, my person is still interested in me
Yeah,
physically. So,
absolutely. I've
I
been
mean,
married for over 20, well, I've been with my husband for over 20 years. And I've heard the saying that marriage is a contract with the option to renew. And I want to get renewed.
When you
Now, how does your husband feel about that? It's like, yeah, I agree with you, I just don't want to get in trouble with you. Yeah.
When
you
you
got to
watch
keep it
or listen
spiced up.
to movies or television, there's always that montage of the person getting ready, and whether it be a night out on the town and they're zipping up their leather boot and fixing the bustier, et cetera, or they're pulling up the tie and putting it to the right and walking into the. You always get that montage because that's that's part of establishing the character of that show or movie. But it's also, that's what we do to establish, we play roles all day. I play a role with my niece and nephew. I play a role in my career. I play a role with my partner. I play a role with my family, and sometimes it adjusts for my outward appearance. And sometimes it adjusts for the way I speak or how I conduct myself. But at the core of it, it's always Anthony. It's just, Anthony through like Instagram, Anthony through this filter or Anthony through that filter, because that's where I am at the moment.
Yeah, I know with some of my co-workers that I work, and I always got a boost in the day. Sometimes I would have a lady co-worker walk by and she's like, dang, Tom, you smell good. You smell better than my husband. I'm like, well, thank you. You just made my day, or I'll get a compliment like, Tom, you look good today. I like what you got on. I mean, when you hear that from strangers or coworkers, or that just makes your confidence just shoot right through the roof. Yeah.
Steph, you had another question or two, right?
Yeah, actually, I was going to make a comment first, and that is,
okay.
And y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's by the sound of what I'm hearing from your comments, I'm hearing a lot of self-care and just self-compassion, and those types of things seem to be at the core of your comments that allow you guys to be able to establish some of the confidence that we were talking about. Does that sound about right?
Think about it for a
Yeah.
second, right? There are so many movies out there where, it's the mousy protagonist, glasses, pimples, et cetera, et cetera. There's a popular kid who's going to give the makeover. And then all of a sudden she shows up at the dance and it's like, bam, who are you? And, because that's one of the basic human stories. The more that we self-care, the more that we give the love to ourselves, the more confident we're going to feel about ourselves, and the more attractive we're going to be. And it's not the visual. People, like I said earlier on, the eyes lie. And when somebody looks at you and says, wow, you're hot. Yeah, they're looking at your clothes, they're looking at the way you look, but it's also the way you're carrying yourself. It's the confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And, like I said, I know I'm only about an 8, but I carry myself like I'm a 20. And, I've never pined for company, let's call it.
Oh, now you're making me jealous,
amazingly
Anthony.
That's very diplomatically put, Anthony.
I like that. Nice.
Well,
Well
there
said.
may be little kids hiding behind the couch listening to this. So,
Well, very well said.
Well, there is one more question I wanted to ask. I know that we're running short on time, but I do want to put this out there, and perhaps we can continue this conversation in another session, because I think it's important for us to talk about these things, because we don't hear these types of conversations within our community, and I think it could help people. So with that, vulnerability. How do you guys allow yourselves to be open and yet vulnerable within a relationship?
Well, I guess I can take a try at it from a woman's perspective. Is even though I'm an independent person and I love my independence, I do like for a man to be a man and to have that masculine, because that's the difference between a man and a woman. And I like for a man to be a man with me and to treat me like a woman and allow me to be a woman. And, he does those things that makes me feel that he's a gentleman. And for me to, not that it's like a place thing, but I think that women do have some type of place in some type of way. And I think men sort of like that in some ways, for women to be women and, classy and elegant. And I don't know if, identifying with those traits makes women more vulnerable in that way. But for me, that's the area of vulnerability that I'm willing to accept as a woman, is with my man.
So, the famous author of A Wrinkle in Time, Madeline L'Engle, has a quote that's been out all over the world, and it says I'm going to paraphrase, but basically as children, we think that when we become adults, we'll no longer have to be vulnerable. But the true meaning of becoming an adult is embracing, accepting, and living your vulnerability. For me, the question you asked, it's not so much sharing my vulnerability, it's accepting the things about me, the things inside me that make me vulnerable, the things about life that make me vulnerable, embracing them and figuring out what it means to me, and if someone asks me something, having the courage and the strength to give an honest answer, and to have the courage and the strength to share my vulnerability with my partner or with intimate friendships. It's the beauty, it's the scars that make us beautiful. It's the mishaps that you remember more than the perfect day. You don't remember. You remember more the mishaps and the triumph you feel after you've achieved or surpassed the mishap. It's the scars that make us beautiful. It's our vulnerability that makes us beautiful.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's those scars that shape our character and lead us into kind of a more advanced version of ourselves, I think, and sharing that growth with those that are close to us, I think, is what intimacy is all about ultimately.
Absolutely.
Yes, and also as a woman, well, for myself, I'm sensitive, I'm expressive, and those are just part of my personality traits. And maybe having those personality traits could make me vulnerable to a degree, but I'm okay with those personality traits of, whatever a person may consider them, because they are a part of who I am, and I'm not going to change them. So, so I don't mind if being sensitive or being expressive or displaying emotions could put me in a vulnerable predicament with some people, because I'm comfortable with those traits.
But
this has been an excellent discussion. We're going to have to kind of wrap it up, guys, because we're just down to a few seconds here. But This has been really great. You guys have some amazing points here. You guys are definitely out of the box, and you guys are definitely, I would say, confident in your own skin, and definitely are awakened by your own senses. Each and every one of you, Natalie, Takesha, Anthony, and you, Tom, by your own rights and means. And I think this has been a fabulous discussion, and you guys are right. A lot of this topic and these sort of topics that we've talked about and areas that we've discovered and explored in this conversation is probably something that our community doesn't talk about out loud anyways, not in these forums or discussions out loud like this. But it's all things that we all think about being visually impaired on our own terms and our own sort of, ways. And I think that's really important that we had this discussion today. And I would love to have, yes, to continue this discussion with a few, in a sort of a part 2 with you alls, coming up in the future, and sort of take this to, another newer heights, and just talk more about this in depth and just open and authentic as we've been doing today. So this has been really fabulous. I'm hoping some of this information out there has helped some of our listeners and viewers to kind of, embrace their sexuality, their senses, and awaken and start awakening within themselves, because we are all human at the end of it. As this group put, just because we're visually impaired doesn't mean that we cannot love or feel or have emotion or be sensual or take time for ourselves. And Anthony, one thing I absolutely love that you said that is really, out of all of this discussion, it's kind of where people sometimes don't want to go, and that is the word fantasy. So you allowed us to embrace our fantasies and, be part, take part in fantasy. Fantasy is something I think is a little underrated, and how could blind people possibly have fantasies?
Right. Yeah, let's talk about that.
Fantasy,
absolutely.
Fantasy is good for the health too. I mean, it's important. It makes you healthy.
Definitely. And I would also like to add that all of you, all 4 of you, definitely represent bold, blind, and beautiful.
Absolutely.
You're unafraid.
Oh, thank you.
You're fearless. You are. And, we can look up to you as role models in this area to help us to embrace those parts of ourselves that maybe, we might, be a little, I don't know what the word is, I don't want to say afraid of, but maybe a little hesitant to explore. And I think this is great. I'm enjoying this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I can just say to everybody out there that's listening and possibly watching, if anything that we said today made your heart beat a little faster, whether it be in fear or in, I wish that was me, it is you. It can be you. There's no magic formula. There's no magic pill. There's no magic wand. There's no Cinderella fairy. All you have to do is take that first step. And the first step is always the hardest because it's the first step. Take that first step and say to yourself, I want to be like them, or I want to be on that next Bold Blind Beauty conversation. It's all of us. We all have this power inside us.
I agree with you, Anthony. First step is always the hardest. The second one, it gets a little easier. And then by the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, you're out there in the world. And you're like, wow, where was I for 5 years or 2 years? It's like, I missed out on a little bit of my life, And to the audience out there, take that first step. Take that second step. Keep moving forward. Don't look back.
And you're going to fall. And it's okay to fall. All you got to do is get back up and take another step. I've fallen 1,000 times. I think every single one of us must have, right?
Stick around a little bit and keep moving forward.
And remember, the stars are what makes you stronger ultimately, inside and out. So
thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for the opportunity. It was awesome.
I agree.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.